Most of my favorite games are single-player story games, and although it unfortunately makes me sound hopelessly mainstream, most of those games end up being AAA titles, because only when a company has all of the success and money can they put the time and effort into making characters, plot lines, set pieces, and acting, so that they can all hold up and make a good story game. This video is basically just going to be me babbling about my favorite games and how other people's opinions about my favorite games don't match mine in the most immature way. What is easily my favorite story game of all time and my most played game of all time is Red Dead Redemption 2. Whenever an angry armchair critic brings up this game, you know you're in for a ride because of its unmatchable popularity, with it being Rockstar's latest and greatest release, but it also being developed in such a style that it can be appreciated or unappreciated in several different ways. People who enjoyed all of Rockstar's releases and play similar titles appreciate this game through their dishonorable playstyle, while people who are less keen to video games in general will appreciate the escapism into the beauty of the natural serenity of the late 1800s America and people in it, with its immersiveness and vast landscapes perfectly facilitating their honorable playstyle. Then again, people who enjoy quicker paced games and play movement shooters and exciting RPGs won't appreciate the detailed, lengthy story and gameplay with all of its nuances, and people who like slower, more relaxing story games still may not enjoy the Wild West themed, heartfelt testimony to these gang members' adventures and misfortunes.
When you go outside of the towns and you're kind of traversing from point A to point B, the world really feels pretty empty because it's so big, there's so much space that they just couldn't really fill all of it, so it just kind of seems like you're wandering around an endless void of nothing.
This clip and the next few come from Charlie's review on this game. The link to this video is in the description below, and I really recommend you watch it in entirety. He did a great job pointing out qualities and flaws and giving a very detailed and honest critique of the game. That being said, he's fucking wrong. Sorry, I disagree. I watch plenty of people speak their opinions on this game, and I feel like even with the people voicing their dissatisfaction of this game, they don't make this take. The map is huge and very well mirrors the landscapes of the Gilded Age America, from the dying West and open natural beauty to the Industrial Revolution killing it, and at no point does the living sandbox die on you. Constantly, you are met with people and animals and life with foliage and plant life galore. Nothing stops moving for a second, and even when you find some pleasing open plains and find some relaxation and peace, you meet storms of precipitation impacting the delicate ecosystem, clouds and atmospheric detail matching perfectly rendered graphics, and animals, wildlife. I don't want to bring up statistics and sound like a total idiot, because my true appreciation of this game stems from ignoring the fact that it's a game and living in it and its charm, but there are over 200 different animals in this game and over 40 different collectible plants. Even if I played for a decade, I feel like I would never find the end of this game's content, so I can't for a second consider it empty.
This game has been really championing immersion, making immersion the focal point here. This game will change immersion, and this game is incredible in that regard. This game is some of the most realistic shit I've ever seen in a video game, to a fault. They really take immersion too far, in my opinion. Video games shouldn't be this realistic for a good reason. Let me give you an example. You go to a house, you've killed the people there, and you open the cabinets to start looting. There's 8 cans of beans. In most video games, you take all 8 cans of beans, or just tap it quick enough to take all 8 cans of beans. Well, in this game, you take each one individually, but there's an animation that plays for it each time, and it's a fucking thorough check of each can of beans. You take the can of beans, you look at the can of beans, you look it over, up and down, make sure there's no perforations, no holes in there. You read the nutrition facts, you check out the food label, look at the ingredients, and then you take that can of beans fucking 20 seconds later. You do that 8 times. It's tedious. It's not fun. Yeah, it's realistic because you can't just walk into a house and telepathically take all 8 cans of beans, but I don't think you need to do like a fucking police pat down on each can of beans in the fucking house you're looting.
I completely agree with this idea of a game being too realistic or taking realism to a fault, and tedium has always been a problem for Rockstar in their past releases, but I don't think this game has at all taken realism to a fault. This hypothetical he provides is kind of silly, and I know he wasn't trying to provide a perfect example to illustrate his point, but the very premise it was built on is unreliable. Again, I hate bringing up statistics, so before I do, I will provide a visual example.
Probably.
Did that seem too long? This animation was only a second long, so you can reasonably expect to pick up 8 cans in 10 seconds. When I first watched Charlie's video, I thought to myself, have you no patience? And then I realized this was far too obtuse of a perspective. I don't expect to have to deal with all the shit I deal with all day on a regular basis, then come home to calm down and relax, boot up a game and then wait. This was something that plagued every kid 10 years ago when we had to wait 20 minutes to boot up GTA, and it's the same sentiment that is being expressed in Charlie's video. I'm not going to say I share this idea because I think just because there are animations in this game doesn't mean it is boring, and that may be because of my vapid mentality, but I will say I understand where he is coming from in this take.
And looting is another huge complaint because you have to individually loot the people you kill, which has its own 6-second animation that plays. So you kill a whole town of people, let's say, a whole gang, the O'Driscolls. You take out all the O'Driscolls in one specific area, and then you have to go loot each one individually. Let's say there were 20 people there. It takes 6 seconds to loot one body on average. That's a lot of fucking time spent just looting people. That's not fun. That's not a good gameplay mechanic. It takes immersion to a level I don't think should be reached in video games because it's just not conducive to the medium. Yeah, it's going to be fun to do that and be like, wow, this is so realistic for maybe like the first 5 or 6 hours of the game, I'd say. Then the novelty wears off and then you get into a routine. Okay, let's complete this mission. Alright, let's start looting. Fuck, this is going to take an extra 10 minutes even though I've already done all the hard part. Now I'm just sitting here for 10 minutes looting these fucking bodies. It loses its novelty. You know, if it only did that for the beginning parts or you could turn it off after a certain period of time, that'd be just fine and it'd be great and nothing but a positive. But the fact that you have to do this each and every time fucking sucks.
I don't remember the exact example, but I'm sure there are missions that require searching that may take some time. And although I think 6 seconds is an excessive number, I believe it takes less time than that. This is not an unwarranted idea. Though I would like to add there are exceptions to the realism in looting. When you walk over worn weapons and dead bodies of enemies that once had weapons, their ammunition is instantly collected with no needed action or animation. So I'd like to believe this tedium in looting animations is not as big a problem as it is made to be.
The game is obviously a very slow-paced game, very slow build-up game. The whole pacing of the game is very slow. That's not a negative. However, it becomes a negative when every single mission is so formulaic that it goes like this. You accept the mission, and then you get a 10-minute, trotting scene where you're trotting to the mission objective where you can't go faster because it just won't let you, and you're having 10 minutes of small talk. Luckily, the small talk is well written, so it helps cushion that blow, but it's still a long fucking time of just trotting along with your partner to the mission objective for the most part. Obviously, there's exceptions, and it's always on rails.
One last clip from Charlie reiterating his take on the tedium in this game. There is no denying this. This is a long fucking game. What I would like to say is that you should think about this in the respect that over 100 years ago, you didn't have the luxury of having everything the second you wanted it. They didn't have modern amenities. They didn't have present transportation, and you just had to deal with it. But this is not really an argument I can rightfully make because it just puts us back in the realm of this game being too realistic, so I'm gonna have to hand it to Charlie on this one. If you do not like slower paced gameplay and journeys rather than quicker paced games and linear teleportation, you may not like Red Dead Redemption 2. An example I would like to bring up is The Last of Us. A lot of people were thrown off in the sequel when many characters practically teleported and their journeys at many points in the game were done off screen. While in the first game, which was arguably much better received, the pacing was much slower, and not only was essentially every step of the journey played through, that was pretty much the entire point of the game, the journey from point A to point B.
For the first 4 chapters, I was enthralled not only by the storytelling and set pieces, but by the side missions and minute details of the world. Then chapter 5 hits and I go,
What the hell?
the game takes a dramatic nosedive in quality when you wash up on this island. For an hour and a half straight, you're just mowing people down with almost no motivation behind it. And even after you leave the island, Red Dead never escapes that looming sense of repetition.
The next video is going to come from Video Game Donkey, and I highly suggest you watch his video too. I feel like this is an opinion echoed by almost everyone in Harmony. Chapter 5 fucking sucks. So why does it exist? Rockstar is notorious for their open world design throughout all their games, and with the huge map in Red Dead Redemption 2, this design is better than ever. But other story games like Tomb Raider, Last of Us, and Resident Evil really benefit from their linear design that makes for less opportunities that open world can provide, yet more opportunities that linear maps can provide. One of those being that they can change constantly, and I think a really good example of that is Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4 has an incredible amount of content and graphics that are impressively on par with Red Dead's, but the reason for this is because it is linear. Every game and its mother wants to be open world these days, but the truth is Uncharted 4 has more variety and content than all of them. You play in Panama, America, run a heist in Italy, go to Scotland, uh-oh, Madagascar, fuck it, some island with Libertalia, the long-lost pirate oasis. And when a game like Red Dead 2 saw this kind of variety, it made its shot at a linear playstyle and shot an entirely new map at you. This chapter was interesting, visually and aesthetically pleasing, yet annoying, and set the stage for the rest of the game.
You're constantly riding your horse across the map to a mission only to follow some dude for another 5 minutes when you start it. You have these ancient shooting mechanics with de-emphasized aiming. The cover system is straight up broken. All of these issues that once felt minor started to really irritate me as I became increasingly disconnected from the story.
This is the same idea that Charlie had in his review, and I still don't see it. The chapter definitely made players begin to realize small annoyances in the game, but I think the key word is begin, because all of these quote-unquote problems have been there the entire time, and it is only now annoying players that the game is slow-paced and repetitious. Don't get me wrong, I hate it as much as the next guy when a game keeps throwing the same thing at you over and over again, but in truth, this is the method of gameplay in most games. Shooting is fun. Shooting things is fun. We've known this for hundreds of years, which is why during this time we actually had people doing shit like this and killing each other for fun, and it is why video games make you incessantly shoot people. I don't think Red Dead or any other similar title could ever escape the looming sense of repetition because all of these games have always been repetitive. Now, so far, I feel like all of these arguments have been made against the gameplay. So I would like to go out of my way and explicitly say the story in this game is damn near unblemished. Although I did not hate it as much as many, I will admit that Guarma is an imperfection in this perfection, but the slow and heavy beginning that enticed the astute players until the dramatic takeoff and exciting gameplay with all of its subtle details of the fascinating historic America and its inhabitants, with its bold yet elusive western overtone until a tear-jerking climax that perfectly sets up Red Dead 1 makes for one of the greatest games of all time.
That's the way it is. That's the way it is. That's the way it is.
You're twice as soaked as me right now.
Well, but I'll still be going when the sun comes up. Well, what about air in your paunch in every corner?
Man, you
Oh, it stinks.
We got a problem here.
Hey, put a hole in that son of a bitch.
What really sucks is when that feeling of inconsequence starts to take a hold of the story. For the first 2/3 of the game, I was completely drawn in. Nathan Drake is descending down this tunnel of bad decision making, largely influenced by his shady older brother. He recklessly puts his life and his marriage in danger as the game takes its time setting all the pieces and building this ominous vibe under the surface until you reach that point where you think it's gonna erupt and everything's gonna go to hell. Instead, everything starts resolving itself by magic. I feel like I missed a couple chapters in there. 1 second, everything is fucked. Then, boop! Oh, never mind. I'm not against happy endings, but you have to earn that shit.
Earn that shit? Once again, I get where Donkey is coming from, but if you played the same game I did, you would recognize that Nate earned that shit. He busted his ass fighting through a fucking army to save Sam's life, and although he made plenty of bad decisions, his actions sure as hell made up for them. In real life, you could make a couple bad decisions, then live on your best behavior and be the nicest guy around for years, and your kindness may very well go unrecognized. You could have damn well won the Nobel Prize, but in the end, nobody cares for you, so you get nothing. That's life. It sucks. No happy ending. But in Uncharted, Nathan is lucky. That's the point of the game. Don't tell me it's not. So in his luck, his efforts and him earning his keep was not unrecognized, and the people that love him accepted him in the end, which made for an incredible ending, which it seems Donkey figured out in the end.
This ending, man, dude, this is the most fulfilling, joyous ending I have ever experienced in a video game. And
This clip is from Donkey's video where he revisited Uncharted 4 and revised a lot of his opinions from his first review, and I must say this video is genuinely incredible and packed full of insightful and thought-provoking takes and deserves all of your love.
Don't get me wrong, these are all good games, but the climbing is so goddamn boring. What should be a minor feature is actually a prominent chunk of each game. It's a cutscene of a dude climbing. It doesn't really feel like you're playing when you get to these parts. There's no margin for error. There's no way you can really lose.
I feel like for better or for worse, climbing is what makes up the Uncharted series. It is most certainly not a question for gameplay and effort or skill, because you just point and click, but it is enjoyable if you like letting go of the reins and letting the game take you for a ride once in a while, and believe me, it takes you for a ride. It seems Donkey figured this out too.
In my old review, I said Uncharted 4 has the most boring climbing ever. This is more true for the first 3 Uncharted games. In those games, the climbing is very stiff and mostly there so that the player can spend time looking at the pretty graphics. Uncharted 4's climbing is faster and much more satisfying in its presentation. Don't get me wrong, the climbing is the weakest aspect of this game, but it's impressive how much love went into the weakest part of the game. As a shooter, Uncharted 4 is one of the most unconventionally paced. You don't actually do any shooting until Chapter 4 when Nathan starts blasting targets in his attic with a Nerf gun.
Bullseye.
Shootouts are sprinkled into this game more as a reward than a constant.
I feel like the initial shootouts that are rewarded to the player are enjoyable but get very tiring. Though, this is an opinion I developed on my most recent playthrough where I cranked up the difficulty. In games like this, I 100% believe it is completely up to the player to decide how to play, and I do not blame them at all if they choose an easier difficulty, because in my opinion, having to deal with all the bullshit struggle in the more difficult options can ruin a game for me. Not only is the stealth encouraged, it is absolutely necessary in harder difficulties, and completely shuts out the player's choice between loud or quiet gameplay, and in my opinion, despite how much I enjoy strategy, Uncharted is meant to be loud. Uncharted 4, despite all of its glory and fast-paced gameplay, got annoying at times, although it was likely my fault in the fact that I am shit at video games. When the game was like this, I was kind of annoyed.
Damn it, after all that.
But when it was like this, it makes me want to do this video and say how good it is.
Drive straight through that. Hey. Bye-bye. What the fuck? What the fuck?
Can you move, Sam? Sam? Jesus fuck. Can I blow up Sam? Oh, fuck you, Sam.
Take that, door.
You're pretty good with that stuff.
Well, I've blown a lot of shit